All right, we will get started. Thanks everybody for taking a few minutes out of your day to join us. You've reached our webinar stories from a CSO, Security Awareness Training Which Works. This webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on our LinkedIn site. You can find us at Networks Group on LinkedIn. We welcome your questions. There is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen that you can submit questions, and we'll pause partway through and then do a little bit of Q&A at the end as well. And depending on the volume that come through, if they're not able to be answered live, we will certainly follow up with you after the event. So Dan, if you could move to the next slide. I'm David Howard with Networks Group. We are an Ann Arbor, Michigan-based ethical hacking and managed security services provider with practices in offensive security, defensive security, and compliance. Our approach is helping organizations improve their security and viewing cybersecurity as a team sport. We do that through clear and effective communications, helping our customers understand their security posture and make risk-informed decisions about the best ways to improve it. We were founded in 1997 with well over 20 years of experience in helping partner with our customers to improve their security outcomes. On a personal note, when I'm not helping our customers with security, I'm an amateur woodworker. I'm currently building a new desk for my home office out of giant slabs of walnut that I can barely move around my workshop. And when I'm not doing that, I'm an avid runner. I've completed 13 marathons, and once this pandemic clears up, my next in-person race is slated to be a reschedule of April 2020, which is the Tokyo Marathon. So that'll be my first time in Asia and get to experience it from a unique perspective. So I'm thrilled to have Dan Lohrmann with us today. Dan is an internationally recognized cybersecurity leader, technologist, keynote speaker, and author. During his career, he has served global organizations in public and private sectors in a variety of executive leadership capacities. Lots of awards, including CSO of the Year, Public Official of the Year, Computer World Premier 100 IT Leader. Close to home here, Dan led Michigan's government cybersecurity and technology infrastructure teams from 2002 to 2014. In a variety of roles, including enterprise-wide Chief Security Officer, Chief Technology Officer, and Chief Information Security Officer. He's currently the Chief Security Officer and Chief Strategist for Security Mentor, and he is helping to lead development and implementation of Security Mentor's industry-leading cyber training, consulting, and workshops for end users, managers, and executives in public and private sectors. He has advised senior leaders in the White House, the National Governors Association, the National Association of State CIOs, Department of Homeland Security, state and local government agencies, Fortune 500 companies, small businesses, and nonprofit institutions. The author of 2 books, Virtual Integrity, Faithfully Navigating the Brave New Web, and BYOD for You, the Guide to Bringing Your Own Device for Work. And he's been a keynote speaker globally in security and technology conferences from South Africa to Dubai, from Washington, DC to Moscow. So thank you so much, Dan, for joining us and taking some time with us today.
Great to be with you. Thanks so much, David. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be with your group for today's webcast.
Great, thank you. So I want to begin with just a quick overview of Networks Group and the service pillars that we offer. I'm going to start on the right with our compliance practice. In this area, we help our customers to understand compliance frameworks such as PCI and NIST, how those relate to their businesses, help them provide assessments against those frameworks for their businesses. And then we also use those same frameworks to inform our service development in these other pillars. In the defensive security space, this is where we help our customers to design, deploy, and operate their security environments. This includes helping them to prevent threats, helping them to detect things that weren't prevented, and helping their users to be part of the team in identifying threats that come in. Shifting to the left here in the final pillar, this is the offensive security space. This is where we put our attacker hats on, or our hoodies, so to speak. This is where we look at our customers the way motivated attackers do. We're really thoughtful about replicating the kinds of tactics, techniques, and procedures that you read about in the headlines, the way that businesses like yours are being attacked today. And the goal is to help customers get a better feel for how an attack might unfold against your organization, and to provide a remediation roadmap so that you can start to make risk-informed decisions about how best to invest in improving your security. So I'll show you on this next slide an example from a recent penetration test. This is what we call the risk matrix. So this was pulled from a recent engagement. We've sanitized it so that there's no customer identifiable information in it, but the content is all straight out of that engagement. And you can see when we take this attacker's view of an environment, we look at a variety of perspectives and come at them from these various attack vectors. Each one of these are important to understand when evaluating what your security resiliency is as an organization. But the thing I really want to focus on today is that people, the social engineering vector. We've seen this as a shortfall in so many times in our testing. And in the last year, as the world has changed around us, everybody's work-life balance has upended. And this vector has really spiked as a successful vector for us to exploit these customers that have hired us to test them. The importance of this can really be shown as we move to the next slide and show the attack methodology or the kill chain, so to speak, of how a breach was executed at this account. And this is not terribly unique. You can see that this attack led to full domain control of the customer's environment. We effectively owned their environment. We had unfettered access to their PII data. This happened to be a pharmaceutical company that we were testing. You can see through reconnaissance and scanning, we were able to map out an attack surface for this customer. And in this case, and frankly, in most, the easiest path in was by targeting selected users through a phishing attack. Once we were able to obtain credentials for those users, the dominoes started to fall very quickly. We were able to exploit misconfigured permissions. We were able to pivot to sensitive systems. We were able to access their protected health information and personally identifiable information and demonstrate the ability to exfiltrate that data, to encrypt that data, all while going undetected by that customer. This attack was successful because of user error. And any world-class organization is going to look at their people as their greatest asset. And I think it's time we start looking at those people as an asset when it comes to defending the security of that organization as well. And so that's why I really want to hand it to Dan and get your take on how we get better prepared for these types of attacks.
Yeah, thanks, David. Appreciate it. It's really an honor to be with everyone this morning or this afternoon, wherever you're at, depending what time zone you're in. We're really passionate about this topic of human security and how do you prepare people. There's so many different aspects to this. We're just going to cover briefly today, but some of the lessons that we've learned at Security Mentor over the years, and some what works, what doesn't work, and what are some of the things you really need to keep in mind as you build a security awareness training program and your overall interactions with your end users. And really looking at every employee, as David mentioned, as both your biggest strength, your biggest opportunity. Also, what most companies will tell you, what makes us special is our people, our culture, our vision, our values, and that's great. They also can be the weakest link as well. So, uninformed and careless employees still remain the biggest threat to security. And there's a lot of different numbers out there from different reports. You can pull a lot of different statistics. But we'll say the real question becomes, how do you create cyber savvy employees? I'm going to throw a bunch of different numbers at you, different reports. I can get you more data from Ponemon Institute and other places, but I'll just say right up front, there's different reports that will say 50 to 90% of data breaches could have been avoided had the end user done something differently, had they not clicked on a link, had they changed their password, had they not reused their password, had they done something different, there would have been a real different result. And that data breach may not have happened. So really trying to work through what is the success factors, what are those best practices, what are the practices that work and what don't work when it comes to creating cyber savvy employees. And one of the places that most people want to start is with phishing. And I want to start off, we're going to really walk through a number of different things over the next 45 minutes to get, including some Q&A as well. But there's a lot of different stories. Certainly when we all walk, entered into the pandemic, the COVID-19 challenge, phishing overall, with COVID-19 quarantine 350% up. And again, different studies saying different things. I've seen, depending on what sector you're in, depending on hospitals, talking about governments, different things. I've seen numbers upwards of 500 and 1,000% increase. So, obviously they're going to be using those keywords for those different situations you're in. If you're in an area where there's a flood, you're going to be getting phished about floods. You're going to be phishing about COVID and health and those kinds of things. Another one is business email compromise. A huge area that we think about phishing. I'll mention this now. It's not just about clicking on links. You can have, some people call it whaling. We're going to walk through that. But more targeted at the executives that are making the decisions, the CEOs, the CFOs, the people who have that financial authority and the opportunity to go after those very targeted examples of individuals who have basically the keys to the kingdom, if you will. True story, I'll just say real quickly right now, right out of the gate. People, I know you love to hear stories, and FBI comes out with incredible BEC. It's also called CEO fraud or business email compromise or whaling. But true story that FBI uses. One case, it was a very large corporation, and the bad actors had actually taken over or had access to this CEO's basically their private email account. It was not their corporate email account; it was a private account. But they didn't actually do anything with that for a while. They just stayed in there. They watched to see what was going to happen, and they used that information. Then when he actually did go off on a real fishing trip with his college friends, they do that every year. Went out into the Atlantic. And they went, fishing for a weekend, and the challenge literally came back. When they were gone, they used a real email from his personal email account that he had sent back and forth with his executive assistant. And this was the bad actors, though. And so they said, "Hey, can you transfer millions of dollars to this contractor that we need to pay this purchase order, this kind of thing." But what they had done is they'd gotten into the systems, they'd gone in, they'd changed the routing numbers, the amount of money was routed to another bank account, and then by the time that this was all discovered, which was actually months later when they figured it all out, the money was obviously gone. So in this case, it didn't even actually include clicking on a link. So phishing can be something that's a phone call. It could be a fax. It could be a text message. There's lots of ways. Anything they can do to get you to come in and change your normal way of doing things. And then lots of emails contain malware. So we need to be thinking about all these different ways that people can phish to get information out of us. So the question becomes, it's a solution of choice. How do we actually test our employees? How do we actually improve this? And for many organizations, most of you probably watching this today have some type, or at least heard of, maybe not doing it right now, but some type of phishing simulation. And that's often the training solution of choice. So just some basic tips of the people can keep in mind as you start thinking about phishing. It's certainly a really good practice to determine what your baseline is, to kind of know where you're starting from, and establish where we're at today, and then measure that over the succeeding months and years ahead. Vary and randomize the campaign. So obviously you don't want always the same one coming up to in a predictable way. Randomize meaning you have different groups, different times. You can change the messages up so that whether it's going to be, hey, free pizza in the break room, or hey, you need UPS shipping message coming in, or change your password, something that's supposed to be coming from the help desk. There's lots of different random messages, and literally and you can personalize and customize that. Spearfish and whale. So we mentioned basically 3 levels of phishing that most people use. You start out with just kind of a broad fish, meaning you're just kind of sending it to everybody. It could almost apply to anybody in society. You got a UPS package today, right? It could be somebody in their home. It could be anything. It's just a wide message. You won the lottery, something like that. Spearfish is more targeted, more directed at your company, your bank, your friend, something more specific to your organization, your government. And they oftentimes will use information, sometimes straight off your website, sometimes more targeted. They know something more about you, and they're going to include that in there. It's going to be more, it's going to be difficult in many cases to figure out. And then I just mentioned whaling, where they're really super targeting certain individuals, and they're really focusing on maybe CEOs, maybe CFOs, maybe people who have transfer capability in the finance department. They're going after specific individuals. You can provide real-time training to victims. So if they do click, if they do fall for that, boom, they're going to get something. They're going to get some feedback right away. There's good and bad with this. We'll talk about this in a minute. We don't want phishing to be deemed something that, is, if you get a phish, and you fall for it, you make a mistake, you're somehow a bad person. Only the people that need the training are the bad actors, the ones that are, not doing something right. Because we want people to feel like, I'm always learning something new. And we oftentimes, all of us learn sometimes by making mistakes. Now, obviously, if someone continually makes mistakes over and over and over again, and, they may need to be, talked to, about that by their management, that can happen. But I like to use the adage, just like with our children, we like to praise in public and discipline in private. That's the way you should think about phishing. You don't really want to be making a public example of individuals and say Frank was the one, and everybody points at him, and it's kind of like stick him in the corner with a dunce cap on. That's not the way you want to be doing this. You want to really be using it as a positive way to test people, and really making it successful. And then fish often. It's something you don't want. It's not one and done. Most people don't want to just fish once a year. We say range maybe once a month. Maybe some people do it every week. Depends on your organization, your culture, and where you're at. So you really can adjust depending on where you're at with that.
Hey Dan, we've got a couple of questions that are probably kind of pertinent to this.
Sure.
And first of all, speaking of this being pertinent, I just looked down at my cell phone and had a text message come in that my purchase is en route, arriving by 5:20, and here's a tiny URL link I should click on.
There you go.
Get information. So I can't wait to see what I'm getting. I'll have to fill out that form later. But back to some of the questions that have come in. I think you just answered one, which is how often should we be sending these phishing messages? Is it once a month, or what's the kind of secret sauce there?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the organization. I mean, many do like once a month. Some people do. I've known people that do it once a week. You don't want to wear it out. You also need to think short term, medium, long term, right? So in some cases, when people first start, they want to get a baseline. Maybe they do it more often, and then they just go. I've seen organizations do a variety of different techniques, and they go, even people that fall for it, they may get fish them more often,
Yeah.
and to get that more practice going for those individuals. I've seen people go monthly. I've seen organizations go quarterly as well. So what I really would encourage you there is to talk to your management. Make sure they're aware. You don't want to be trapping people. And like one of the big mistakes I've seen people make that don't do this is, I know organizations where the CEO and the CFO or literally the top level of government directors didn't know it was going to happen, and then they fall for it. And it's like the people, the security team, literally were like, hey, the director fell for it. And it's like they almost threw their drone management under the bus. That is the no-no. You do not want to do that. So you want to make sure you articulate it, not necessarily say they know when it's coming. It's going to be Thursday at 4 p.m. But, make sure you have a general agreement with your leadership team as to how often they want to fish.
Yeah, that's we've seen that ourselves. So along those lines, we hear from customers sometimes that they're hesitant to run a phishing campaign specifically on something that's really topical, say, COVID
Sure.
right now, because they're worried about that being a distraction, or because they think it's tricking the user and might embarrass that user. What's your take on that approach?
Yeah, so I think that the messaging is really important, David. I think, with the second half, things I'm going to cover here in a couple of minutes when we get to the training piece, it really needs to be a combination of, this is about really an exercise, a test, in the same way we think of it like you have an incident response plan. And, in the same way, we have this across the board in cybersecurity, right? I was involved as emergency management coordinator for the Department of Information Technology back in 2003 when the power went out in Southeast Michigan, right? And we practiced with Y2K. Thankfully, we had 3 different exercises and tabletop exercises, and we were ready when that power outage hit. So, organizations practice incident response plans, and just like the firemen, practice putting out fires, right? And no one would say, hey, you want a fireman to show up at your house when your house is burning down? They never actually used a hose before. That would not be real. We would not be, instilling confidence, right, in our client base. So, you want to be training people, helping them understand. This isn't about trapping you. This is not about, throwing anybody under the bus. This is really, you want to make positive words. This is enabling, and then testing and making sure that we have the, in the same way, kids test when the fire alarm goes off at school and you have that fire drills. I mean, this is a fire drill, right? So you really want to be testing your people. And you want to be figuring out what, your culture, what's best for you and your culture. What's the right, what's the right number of times and things. But I think with the right messaging, most people, have a positive response to this, and there's huge benefits to it.
Awesome. Thanks. I'll let you get back to your content here. Thank you.
Great. You're welcome. So as we were mentioning, phishing simulation is great. And a lot of people, it's interesting to stop right there. And we certainly would not recommend that. And it's not about, okay, only, the ones that click, they're the ones that need the training. They're the bad apples. I blogged about this for many years, and our view in Security Mentor is, spend more time with the good apples. You want everybody to be learning. You want everybody to be growing. I often tell people if they have a smartphone, how many people have an iPhone 1? And like no hands go up in an audience, right? How many have an iPhone 2? Okay, all your iPhone 3s. Everybody hold up their iPhone 3s. Everyone laughs, and of course, no one's got an iPhone 3 anymore. Those are like, in the archive somewhere, if they're even around. But why did people have 10s, 11s, 12s? Because we always think, hey, I get my new smartphone, I get my new Android device, I get my new whatever it is, new technology. Kids want that for Christmas, right? That's the way you think about training. We should all be lifelong learners. We need to be upgrading our knowledge, and this needs to be an ongoing, in the same way we upgrade our technology related to mobile devices or computers or laptops or whatever. We need to be upgrading our training. So we want to be training often, and these are some of the mistakes that people do make. training triggered by mistake, training often very limited, negative approach not positive, serious threats remain unaddressed. I'm going to go through some of those in a minute, but this is where it can actually become a negative thing. I mentioned earlier, a real quick story, a few years back, a number of the companies were coming out and saying, only train the small few, you can get it down to like 1% and then make an example of them. And again, I think the message you're sending people in that case, and literally some organizations still do this. It's like, if you fall for it, that's strike one. We give you kind of a verbal reprimand or something, or maybe a letter. Strike two, we're going to cut you off the network and we're going to quarantine you until you go to a class. And then strike three, we're going to kick you off the network, maybe even fire people. I've seen that is not the approach that is effective. You're sending the message to your staff, only the bad people, only the bad apples, only the people that have something wrong with them, quote unquote. They're the ones that need training. Everybody else, I didn't need it. So you don't want to be saying that. We're very big believers at Security Mentor that you want training to be a positive approach. You want it to be something that covers a wide variety of topics, and you want people to be loving the training. One of the things we love, we feel most proud about at Security Mentor is we have incredible feedback. People love our training. We get the best customer feedback in the industry. People say thank you. And that's, if you're a CISO out there, if you're a technical leader, you're not used to hearing those words. Thank you, David. It's like, thank you for that security training. Right. Really. I mean, when I was CISO for the state of Michigan, somebody, hey, you're Dan Lohrmann. I usually try and hide behind the car because, we had just disabled their access or something. Right. So there's usually some story behind, security is not deemed as, hey, you're here to help. Right. But if you provide enabling, positive experiences for people, they will have that attitude. This is an area where you security pros out there, you technology pros, can actually build bridges with your end users. To have end users saying, I love this. Hey, can my family take it? Can we do this at home? Can we, literally, this is helping me. And some of the topics here, these are not all of them, but, bring your own device to work. Insecure passwords, clean desk policies, drive-by malware. You can see the list. Privacy, IoT devices. How do you configure things? I mean, you can talk about home thermostats and all kinds of different connectivity in people's homes now. And this is only going to be smart. Put the word smart in front of just about anything in our society, and you've got IoT, right? So a smart kitchen, smart home, smart oven, smart whatever. And people are saying smart cities now, right? So whole cities and devices, and how do you protect that? So often, just one quick tip there. And again, we have a whole lesson just on IoT devices. But do you use those defaults? Change those default passwords. Turn on the security features that you get out of the box. So many people don't even think about security when they think about IoT devices or a smart thermostat. But what do they do around protecting that? So looking at shadow IT, looking at those kinds of topics. So you really want to think, continually evolving around this. Threats are continually evolving. We're just seeing that. I just did a blog. You can read my Lohrmann Cybersecurity, also our Security Mentor blogs at our website, securitymentor.com. But what just happened, of course, with the Colonial Pipeline and the impact of that, I think the country kind of woke up to ransomware. Little 6-year-old girls asking questions, Dad, what's ransomware? All these lines in Georgia and North Carolina and South Carolina and the Southeast. So the risks are real. Healthcare, malware delivered by drive-by downloads, cloud services misconfigured, data breaches because of weak or default passwords, stolen passwords. These are just some of the topics that we cover, and how do people in proactive ways, how can they learn this? How can they actually improve their situation? So you really want to be thinking about comprehensive training to build cyber savvy employees. You want people to be well trained, and you want them to really want more training. So we have to cover a spectrum of threats. Let's go through a couple of these. What really sets the training apart when you offer this to people? So first of all, we say this when we talk about streaming and people, HBO Max and Discover Channel and Disney and everything else. Great content. You got to have good content. So often people say, talk about cost. I'm not going to get into, the cost of any piece of this now, but the biggest cost you've got for your staff is their time. And you don't want to waste people's time. If it's like, I've heard this before, I literally, I've talked to CSOs all across the world, and in many state governments, when they switched over to Security Mentor, people would come to me and tell me, Dan, our training is like watching reruns of Gilligan's Island. I mean, I've seen this 7 times. I know how it ends. It was fun. It was great the first time. Second time, okay. Third time, not so much. But now we're at number 9. And doing the same thing over and over again is not going to get a different result, right? So you really want to have engaging content. You want it to be interactive, not just showing videos, not just watching YouTube videos. You want it to be interactive and engaging, brief, frequent, focused. That's trademark for Security Mentor, but keep it short, easy to remember. We think about a 10-minute lesson is the right amount. Some people, I will say, even have, 1 minute, 2 minute things. That's a little hard to, cover HIPAA in 2 minutes. Maybe it's getting a little too short there. It's difficult, but you want it to be frequent. Keep it year round. You don't want it just to be one and done. Okay, 2 hours in January. See you next January. I've done my security for the year. I've checked my box, right? You want it to be something that's top of the mind year round, that people can remember. That's sticky. And how do you make it sticky? One of the best ways is to gamify it. Make it fun. Reward success. Now, there's games you can have within our lessons. You can also have gamification, like you're keeping points. I have an Apple Watch, I have a Fitbit watch. My wife and I like to compete. Who did more steps today? Competition. Some organizations love competition. I can't tell you how many governments I've worked with. It's like, we don't want those guys across the street, the people down the hall. We don't want that group to beat us, right? So, when they don't have a lot of other motivation, they have the motivation to win. Kind of Michigan State here, David. I'm a State fan. So, people want to win, right? People want to win, and that keeps things going. So, positive, don't punish, encourage. Again, I'm not saying there never needs to be somebody that needs to be spoken to. Of course, that happens. But as we talk about it, you really want to make it a positive message. You want it to be something that people love, that they enjoy, that they want to do. That's really what you want your training to be about. So really what it comes down to is this. I'm almost done here. We'll take some questions. But security awareness training with phishing can create cyber savvy employees. It's not one or the other, it's both. You want to be using phishing simulations and other tools. We could talk about other things like, other types of reminders and, posters and things that people like to use. But really, these two really make a huge difference. Almost done here. I want to just mention a couple of other success factors, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. Top-driven success. I get this question a lot. Dan, what about, you're mentioning all these things about, I call them bottom up. You want the employee to love it. You want it to be engaging. You want it to be interactive. You want it to be gamified. You want it to be fun. You want it to be pretty frequent, focused. All these things, great. But what about management? You want management leading by example. So true story here. Take us back to 2012 when we rolled this Security Mentor out to 55,000 state employees in the state of Michigan. And Governor Rick Snyder was my boss's boss. David Bean was my boss, CIO. I was CSO for the state. And we wanted the governor, to help us with, selling this. And so at a cabinet meeting, this was not even on the agenda. He actually opened up the cabinet meeting, and it was not on the agenda. Before everyone sitting in the room, Governor Rick Snyder said, "How many have taken the security awareness training?" No hands went up. Nobody in the room. Governor said, "Well, I took the training. It's great training. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I expect each one of you around this table to take it, and I expect each one of your direct reports to take it. And oh, by the way, I'm going to check next month to see if you've done that." Boom, 30 seconds. It was not some executive order. It was not some heavy duty thing. It was the governor saying that to his direct reports in a cabinet meeting. So the next month comes around. He says, "Okay, how many of you took the training?" Guess what? All the hands go up, right? Now, we knew half of them had not taken the training yet. But the truth is this, half of them had. The ones that didn't ran back to the office. We had a couple of agencies, literally, true story, who canceled their meetings, called emergency staff meetings, and said, "We're all taking the training right now." Why? Because the governor, I just told the governor, remember, this is the governor who just gave them their job, right? They all report to him. He's their boss. I just told the governor that we've all done it. So we're going to do it right now. Well, that kind of buy-in, it didn't take the governor, he didn't have to travel around the state. He didn't have to give hours and hours and hours. Literally, it was 2 to 45-second messages at a staff meeting, at a cabinet meeting, and it made all the difference in the world. We knew we had that management buy-in. We knew the directors were behind us. Now, we did road shows. We did a lot of other things to get buy-in around cybersecurity in the state. But Governor Rick Snyder really did get it, and he really believed, many of you know that who are listening to this. We had a great program. So top-driven success, getting that management buy-in. I have whole blogs, by the way. If you don't have that from your management, if you don't have the buy-in, we're happy to talk to you about that, how you can get buy-in when you don't have it. There's a lot of tips and tricks and different things you can do to help get that buy-in. Analyze your organization. Not every organization is the same. What do you want to focus on? What are the different audiences? Thinking about, what are the messages that are most effective and personalizing it to that organization. You can do that with Security Mentor. Work your plan. So, follow through. Strive for excellence. You can see these coordinated security training, phishing, and the training modules themselves. Multiple channels. We talk about, when you get a message, we talk about your text there, David. A lot of people we have in our training, you can get a little text message that says, hey, call this phone number. We've deactivated your there was an incident on your MasterCard. We deactivated your MasterCard. Call this phone number. Well, how do you know that's the phone number of your bank? One of the tips was look up the number yourself. If you really want to call it, look up your bank, flip the card over, whatever, call the number in the thing. Did you do this? I've had that happen in my own personal life where it wasn't from MasterCard. It wasn't from them. And many of you people probably have gotten those calls and, hey, this is Microsoft. We're here to help you. We hear you have an incident on your computer, and then they tell you to go look at a file, and then there's something, and do you have, does it say, return on page 6 or whatever? Oh yeah, you've got the malware here. Download all of this, and these are the bad guys doing this, right? So how do you know when somebody calls you that it's really Microsoft? How do you know that that's really your bank? Making sure that you use multiple channels like texting and others. Like I said, it could be a fax. It could be it literally could be a piece of paper that people are dropping in the parking lot. It could be a fish. If it gets you to do something to get out of your normal routine, create a culture of openness. You don't want people, and one of the things I didn't mention earlier about a culture of failure and blame is, a lot of organizations say, we learn by making mistakes. So you don't want somebody, just because they clicked on a link once, they're now in the bad naughty list or whatever. You want to really create a situation where people are okay to report when mistakes are made. So if you have a security incident, and I have lots of examples of this, going back to my time at the National Security Agency working in England, we literally almost lost a satellite. I'm not going to go into the details. In England, that I worked at a place, we almost lost $1 billion satellite because of an employee made a huge mistake and they went home sick for 3 days. And, had they just reported it, we could have saved a lot of time and a lot of energy for a lot of people. But no, this person decided they were going to be sick for the next 3 days. We found it, and we found him in his bed, but it took us 3 days to figure it out, and almost cost us $1 billion satellite. Thank you, that didn't happen. Thankfully, that did not happen. But I will tell you, it took a lot of time, a lot of energy for a lot of people in England to figure that out. So you want people reporting. If something goes wrong, you want your security team to know it. You want to work with them. A lot more I could say on that, David, but I know we really want to take some questions. So we have some contact information here. I know they can also talk to your team as well, working with us. But let's open up to some Q&A now.
Yeah, we've got quite a few here, Dan. Thank you for sharing the stories. That was fun. The Microsoft support story triggered a memory that one of our hackers got a call from Microsoft support at the office one day, and we had so much fun.
I'll bet.
He put them on speakerphone. He spun up a VM that they were remote shelling into, and we had these folks on the phone for 45 minutes. I almost made popcorn. It was, we were all gathered around the cubicle. We had a lot of fun with that.
I've had real quick on that one, David, just real quick. I actually had that happen with the pastor of our church. A lot of churches are getting these things. The pastor needs you. They're trying to get you to send iTunes cards numbers so they can get money out of it. The pastor needs you, some elderly person is home and he doesn't have any money and he's late and he's this and that, send iTunes cards, right? And I'm like, oh, really? And I think this is, And we did the same thing with a team of our people, friends of mine, and just playing along with this hacker. Oh, who's he visiting? And it was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious, just kind of playing along. But that can be dangerous too. So I'm not advising listeners to play along with hackers, because you may end up losing that battle. But it can be a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, it was a nice distraction that afternoon.
Yeah, I'll bet.
So let's look at the questions here. I'll jump on this first one, which is, so phishing is one vulnerability. Can you touch on vishing and smishing and the likelihood of bad actors using these methods? Absolutely, they are.
Absolutely. And again, you have whole lessons just on each of these topics. So you can do SMS, you can do text messages, you can have voice phishing, and I mean, there's a lot we could say on this. Anything that can be done to trick, really what phishing is, or you want to call it phishing, voice phishing, voicemail phishing, SMS texting, whatever it is. I hate to just create all the different renditions of phishing, because anything they can do to get you to change your behaviors. I mean, their goal is to rob the bank, if you will, right? I mean, it may be not even money. In some cases, there are stories, and the FBI's got a bunch of great stories on business email compromise. But out there, you can go read the stories. Sometimes one was a company did tax returns, and they just wanted somebody to transfer all the tax returns to somebody that wasn't supposed to have them, and then they used that to get all the credentials, and then to file false tax returns. But voicemail, there's a great RSA video you can watch from a few years back. A woman who's at a conference, and she's got all these sound effects machines, and she calls a help desk to just try and get them to give her access, password kind of thing. You've seen the same thing, by the way. Watch, if you ever see Die Hard 4, Live Free and Die Hard, they do that with the General Motors, trying to get the people to start the car, by, saying, oh, we got no car accident, and, all these kind of things. But all of it is to get the person on the other end of the phone to do something different, to give them their credentials, to give them access, to transfer some funds, to do something that's going to enable them, if you will, to commit the crime that they're trying to commit, whether it be ransomware, whatever it might be.
Well, we had an example of this, Dan, recently on a pen test where our hacker called into the customer's help desk and said, I just got a new iPhone. Can you help me move my Duo over to the new iPhone? So the two-factor authentication. And the help desk asked her a handful of questions about who she was, who her supervisor was. This is information that was easy to get through open source intelligence.
Sure.
And then asked her a handful of questions that she didn't have the answers to, and she bluffed. And the help desk wanted to be helpful and started feeding her the answers. And in just a few minutes' time, set up two-factor authentication on the hacker's phone that allowed them unfettered access from the outside. So it is absolutely a legitimate concern. Let me keep moving, because we've got a stack of them here.
Sure.
I think this one really cuts to the core of a lot of these questions, which is, how do you measure success of a program like this?
Sure. So there's a lot of great measurements. You can certainly, I'll run down a list, and I'll tell you a story about one true story about kind of the holy grail in my view. But you really want to get customer feedback. What do people think? Are they learning something new? Ask your end users. Do they like the training? 1 to 5. On a bunch of different areas. Did they learn something new? Did they like it? Ask for the feedback. That's one way. You can do quizzes. You can do assessments. You can do before and afters. Honestly, that's not my favorite way, because studies have shown that when you try and quiz people and do assessments, again, I like the before and after assessment better than the quiz. But people try and I just want to pass the quiz. The goal becomes to pass the quiz, not to actually learn the material, right? So it's get through it as quickly as possible and then take the quiz. Now, we offer quizzes. It is available. But I actually tell people that I don't think that's the most successful way to do it. studies have shown that, by the way. But some people know I got to take a quiz. I'm going to give them 5 questions. And get all, you got to get 4 out of 5, or they're going to, take it over again, kind of thing. And then you do see people passing answers around the office, and then you say, okay, we're going to randomize the quiz questions, all that kind of thing. So all those are options. Reported incidents. Again, do you click on a link? Phishing. Actually looking at metrics in someone's history. Did they take the training? Did they take it on time? Did they take it, where are they at in the cycle? Those kinds of things. Let me give you one true story of what happened in the state of Michigan when I was CISO there, and why I was so excited about Security Mentor. At the time, this was about 2013, at the same time as the Saudi Aramco malware, and we had an individual who got a phish, and we later asked him, why did you send that in? And so I won't give you the name, but basically we had a method where you could email forward to any suspected, a lot of people have that. If you don't, help desk, or send it to this address, xyz@michigan.gov, and then that's not the address, by the way, but you can send it to this address, and then the help desk will take care of it. Well, this guy sent this in on a Saturday afternoon. Now, thankfully, at the time we were running a 7x12 shop. Now they're running 7x24. We asked him later, why did you send that in? He said, I just taken the security mentor training, or I wouldn't have known what to do. So we linked it right back to the training. We're like, well, thank God he did, because had he clicked, it was malicious malware would have wiped his hard drive clean. Wow. Our guys ran that in a sandbox in our back cave, which was a security operations center for the state. And basically, they found what it did. They found the damage it had done. They went into Exchange, and they found that email had been sent to 2,500 state employees. 2,500 state employees, it was in their inbox. They went in, they pulled that out of the inbox. Not one person clicked. So we had 0 incidents on a malicious malware. That same malware, very similar, a little different. 30,000 Saudi Aramco machines were destroyed with the same malware that actually hit 3 states and a number of federal agencies as well. So what our guys did, we said, well, the governor wanted to know, what did that one incident save the state? And so we did a study at the time with Lohrmann, and we did an analysis, and basically said, what did that, we estimated a 1 in 3 click rate, which is what we were getting at the time. At that time, it was a Symantec product, Security Mentor training, but Security Mentor didn't have phishing. We added phishing a couple years after that in 2015, 2016. But basically, we were getting about a 1 in 3 click rate. So we said if 850 people had clicked, 4 hours to rebuild their PC, assuming you have all the backups, all the data, all that's being done properly. 4 hours to rebuild the PC times the salary of the microtech as a union employee times 850. We added in the help desk hard cost, contacting the customers, did not include identity theft protection, brand damage, governor getting a black eye, no soft costs, all hard costs. $50,000 was the number. $50K was that one incident. Symantec said no way. It was more like $250,000.
Oh yeah.
So they said that number's way low.
Yeah.
But in the first year, we have recorded 6 incidents in 12 months that we documented, saved the state at least $10,000 per incident. So we document. You can actually go back and you can do the work to say these were it's cost avoidance, but this did not happen because the training that we provided. So you can actually do we call it ROSI, return on security investment. I know some people have some issues with that. We'll talk about that's another topic for another day. Because you can't take that money out of your budget. I can't say, okay, it's $50,000 because it's stuff that didn't happen. It's the 9/11 that didn't happen. It's what if the planes hadn't flown into the building? Some estimates are $2 trillion for the U.S. if you add in the Gulf Wars. But what was the cost of 9/11? $1 to $2 trillion, depending on what number you believe. The point being, you can show the ROI, you can show the benefit.
Awesome, thanks. Great feedback there. Let me pause for just a moment, remind people there's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen if you want to ask Dan or myself anything. I'll give a quick commercial, Dan, if you'll move to the next slide that okay. We have the next in our series of webinars scheduled for June 17th at 1 o'clock, and you can find that information on our networks group page on LinkedIn. And that's all about looking at ransomware from the perspective of both attackers and defenders. How does it work? What's changed? How do you understand it? How do you minimize the risk for your business. So we'd love to have people join us for that as well. As a reminder, there'll be a recording of this webinar posted on our LinkedIn page as well. Here's another question that has come in, and this is really directed at how Security Mentor stacks up against your competition.
Sure.
So how is this different? Is this like all the other training videos I've seen, or what does Security Mentor do that's different?
So there's a lot of differences, and first of all, we don't do videos. We hear that question a lot. Videos, most people and I saw this when I was CISO in the state of Michigan. I saw it around the country. A lot of times you have a video, it's like start the video, go down the hall, use the restroom, get a cup of coffee, come back, see if the video is over. I mean, it's like, check the box, move on. These are interactive, engaging modules. So it's gamified, game-based training, fun. The other thing we do, brief, frequent focus. A lot of companies have said, well, we're trying to copy what Security Mentor does there. Most companies do one and done. It's once a year, 2 hours, 3 hours. Even when they, might tell you, oh yeah, we can do it year round too. They're not set up that way. The way we run our whole back office, very easy to use. Reminders are sent to the end users. It's not like managers are going around tapping people on the shoulder saying your training's due. They've all the data, all the graphics, all that is in their hands, so you can manage it. You can delegate the authority down to manager levels. There's a lot of different capabilities, but the ease of use, brief, frequent focus, gamified, and I think the stickiness. I mean, there's so many stories I could tell you, David. I don't have time to show you all these stories, but people love our training and they love the games. I'm changing behaviors for people. Travel lessons. When I often tell the story of people. I don't know. Do I have time to tell another story here? Or
I love your stories. Let's
okay,
get one story.
So true story. I had a guy who taught me 2.5 weeks before I left state government. Guy comes up and he grabs me and says, Dan, I need to talk to you. And I said, I'm late for a meeting. I'm running down the hall. This is in the Lewis Cass building, downtown Lansing. He's like, no, I drove 12 miles to tell you this story. You're going to listen to me. I'm like, okay. I stopped it. I'll be late for my meeting. So literally he says, so my wife and 2 kids, he had taken this training. It was very sticky. It was gamified around, travel lessons and, where the way people lose things in airports and all these different things. You had to go through all the different places that people lose things in airports. And it was gamified. It's fun. How do you do that? And everything from, is it the kiosk? Is it the executive lounge, the front, the restroom, all the different places. Well, anyway, he had taken this training and he said, I was getting off the bus in Orlando to go, and we're going to fly back to Michigan and with my wife and 2 daughters. And I was thinking about that training. He said, yeah, I know it's sticky, isn't it? He said, yeah, I was thinking about it. He said, let me tell you what happened. So we're walking towards the gate, and I reached down my belt to get my smartphone. And I actually use a belt clip as well for my smartphone. And he said it was gone. He said, I freaked out. I ran back. The bus was pulling off this was the Hertz bus or Avis or whatever. He said, I jumped in front of the bus. I said, well, that's not in our training. He said, I stopped the bus. I get back on the bus. He says, what is it? He said, my phone is on this bus. He said, how do you know? He said, well, I was texting my friend as we were heading to the airport from the rental car place. I know it's on this bus. He said, well, go look. He just goes back, and there's this iPhone sitting on the luggage rack. And he said, I knew what happened, Dan. I got it. I went out. I saw my wife, said thank you to the bus driver. She said, did you get your phone back? He said, yes, I did. She said, what happened was he had put his phone back down. They were the last 4 off the bus. He pulled his 2 daughters' bags off, put them on the curb, pulled him and his wife's off, put them on the curb, started walking, and left his phone sitting on the luggage rack. He gets back. His wife is a state employee as well. She gets back to his wife. His wife says, you need to go back. He says, it was because of that training, wasn't it, that they walked you through all the places? He says, in the first place is the kiosk, and turns out number 1 place. I'm giving you the ending here. You got to rush this. It's the bus. It's like the travel to and from the airport, the tram in the bus, the rental car, the buses. That's the number 1 place people leave stuff. And it could be the restroom. It could be people say security checkpoint. That's number 4, going through the checkpoint. But he says, his wife tells him, Dan, he said, you need to go back and tell Dan Lohrmann thank you, because it was because of that training that you did not lose your smartphone. And he says, Dan, that's why I'm standing here right now telling you this story. That's a true story. I have dozens of stories like that, and that's you're actually, wow, security training is helping people not lose their smartphone. That's incredible. It's like, who wants to lose their smartphone? Raise your hand. Nobody wants to lose their smartphone. Everyone would acknowledge that it's not good to lose your smartphone, but we don't have training that's sticky that helps us. So that's the kind of thing. It's very different than what the focus is of our competitors. And it's enabling, it's positive, it's a training that's going to be sticky, and it's a training that's going to impact people's lives. It's going to impact your culture.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that and the other stories. Thanks for taking time out of your afternoon to spend with us. Thank you for all the attendees for joining us. I took away a handful of key things from this about practicing and the metaphor of fire drills. And probably most importantly, I determined that we need to have a bat cave here at Networks. Because I'm just more than a little jealous.
I got a lot of bat cave stories.
But thank you. Anybody that has questions after this, my team can be reached info@networksgroup.com. Dan had his contact information up as well. We will post this on LinkedIn and look forward to more of these conversations. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, David. Enjoyed it. Have a great day, everyone.